This episode was recorded on November 1st, 2020, for later broadcast in 2021. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the VCCA Spotlight. I'm your host, Jim Karras. Today we will welcome Dave Cavagnaro and Dean Echols to talk about the VCCA Touring Program. Dave Cavagnaro has served as the Touring Committee Chair for many years and has recently stepped down as the Chair, and Dean Echols has accepted the Committee Chair position to lead the Touring Committee going forward. Dave and Dean will share with us about the VCCA Touring Program, including its history and the various aspects of the program. Please join me in welcoming our two guests, Dave Cavagnaro and Dean Echols, to the VCCA Spotlight. Welcome to the VCCA Spotlight. It's so great to have you. Today, Dave Cavagnaro and Dean Echols. Dave hails out of New Jersey and Dean comes from Arizona. Dave, why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about your involvement in the VCCA, your history, kind of your resume for the VCCA, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. Well, I joined the VCCA in 1977, and I've been pretty active in the local region and whatnot. I was in the New Jersey Lakeland region originally and still. And at that time, I was driving my 1940 Chevy as my daily commuter car. I still have the 40 Chevy. In fact, it's the one that's on the membership brochure, a list of cars on the membership brochure there when we were on Daytona Beach a few years back. I also have a 62 Impala, which is an original four-door sedan, and I'm working on a 69 Corvair convertible. As far as positions I've held in the national level, I've been area director, at-large director, which is no longer a position in the club. I was the VCCA president for 2003 and 4. I was the chair of various committees and now the chairman of the touring committee. And I've been serving since 1996 at the national level, so I've got about 24 years in at the national level.
Well, thank you so much.
I suggest anybody who's interested in getting really involved with the club, get involved with the national level, and you'll get tremendous enjoyment out of the club.
And Dean Echols, you're no stranger to the touring program, and you've been around the VCCA a long time. Tell us about your experience and history in the VCCA.
Well, Jim, I started and I joined in 1972 when I was a senior in high school. And the interesting story to that, the local region advertised in the Arizona Republic that they were having a scavenger hunt. Come join us for the scavenger hunt and check out the club, and the winner would get a 1932 Chevrolet. Well, that just piqued our interest, so my friend and I jumped in our 38 Chevys, ran over and joined them, ran the scavenger hunt, and I won. And I thought, wow, 32 Chevy, and they handed me a model of a 32 Chevy Coupe, which I still have on the shelf. And the 38 Chevy that I drove to the event was my first car in high school, and I currently still have it. I've never sold it. And my cars are a majority of 38s. I think I was a 38 Chevy in a previous life because I really like 38 Chevys. And then I've got a few others mixed in. I have a 28 Chevy Depot Hack that I take on the four-cylinder tours, and then a 56 convertible, and then a couple cars, 53 Bel Air four-door sedan and a 50 Chevy pickup that my parents and my granddad bought brand new in Prescott. And so I'm a member of the Central Arizona region from the beginning, and have held various offices in there, president, vice president, secretary, and then I'm also been in charge of the swap meets we put on, and then recently been elected to the Area 1 director, and I've been we did the 2006 national meet. I was a co-chair of that, so a little bit of experience and exposure there, and that's about it.
And then you also are the newsletter editor now for the Arizona region, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, which is...
Yes, I'm the newsletter editor.
That's a lot of work in and of itself. Well, thank you both for your service. When I joined the club, Dave, you were still on the board, but you had just finished up your time as president right around that same time. And I was very fortunate to spend a little time with you on your last time on the board. So I appreciated all of the knowledge and wisdom that you brought to that. And I want to echo what you said earlier about serving at the national level. It's great to get involved in your region, and that's really the lifeblood. But if you ever get an opportunity to get on a national committee, any of the committees that you're interested in, you will learn so much and you'll meet, lifetime friends. I've certainly received what little I've done. I've certainly received more than I've given, that's for sure. So thank you.
That's true. It definitely extends the family.
So let's talk a little bit about the passing of a torch. Dave, Dean is joining us because you're ready to turn the reins over after, is it a decade or longer? How long have you been chair of the touring?
I've been chairman of the touring since 2007.
So more than a decade. Yeah, it's been a long time. So are you going to stay on the committee?
No, I think that would be proper. I'm available to conference with anything, but it would be proper for me to stay on the committee.
And so you've passed the torch to Dean. And Dean, thank you so much. I am on the committee, and I would like to stay on the committee if you'll have me for what little I contribute, but I enjoy it.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to your leadership. Do you either of you have any comment about Dave, the exiting, and Dean taking the reins?
The plan is that come January 1st, Dean's going to take over. We've got pretty much, I think, everything laid in line, right, Dean?
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
The thing that I'd like to do is to get together with Dean and Peter so that we can go over the database so that there'll be a simple transition there. Dean will have access to it and also the knowledge of how it works.
Yeah.
So we can expect a smooth transition in this one.
I would think so.
That's good.
Yes, I've got to fill some big shoes because Dave's done an excellent job with all this and from the start. And it's, I think it's one of the best things that, he came up with and started, and then all of the things that go with the touring program. It makes it interesting, makes it a lot of fun. And I think Dave's done an excellent job.
It's really not me doing the job. I have had some fantastic people working on this committee. And when we were doing some of the initial development, these people were working every day. We had emails flying back and forth every day. And it was the help of all the people on the committee that made it what it is, not me.
I can tell you that my experience with the touring program, outside of having my name on the committee, I'm probably the least active member on the committee, to be honest. But my experience with the touring program in getting our passports, and we had to have a replacement passport. We got a passport for the Impala, and it broke down right before we were going to go on the tour. And I don't know what happened, but in that process, we lost the passport. So that passport never even got any miles in it, which I guess is a good thing in retrospect. And then we were ready to go on the next tour, and we don't have a passport. And Dave got it to us, and right before. And your approach to service has been stellar, and that's from firsthand knowledge. So thank you for all of your dedication.
Well, thank you.
Dave, can you share with us a little bit about the history? You've been with the touring program since the inception. Talk a little bit about how it came into being and why you wanted to fill that need.
Well, actually, touring was part of the original creation of the club all the way back to 61. When the club was first started, it wasn't involved with judging or anything. It was primarily the guys getting together and driving. And it then grew into the aspects of the club. The touring program, I actually created the touring committee when I was president in 2003 and 4. And the first chairman of the committee was Jim Ferris. And Jim was working with Tom Aleo, and they put on a 4-cylinder tour each year that predated the touring program completely. The touring program under Jim in the 2003 range, they came up with the idea or the concept of a passport. It was Jim Ferris and Gene Fink who came up with the idea of a touring passport. And the first official use of the touring passport was in 2006 at the Grand Junction anniversary meet. So it's had quite a bit of a history.
And we're on our second version of the passport. Tell us a little bit about that transition, because some of those early books are kind of coveted now.
Yes, the first version that Jim and Jean came up with had a light blue cover, and the photograph of the car was actually encased in plastic in the cover. And the rest of the pages didn't really afford for many tours. It only had space for 18 tours. We quickly found out that the book in that format was much too labor intensive to do and costly. So we changed to a new format, which is the dark blue cover in 2007. And that permits us to just slip a photo into the passport, and then also provides for 118 tours to be recorded. So that's the way we've been working. Currently, we're just over 1,500 passports have been issued in the club.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. We'll talk about the passport a little bit and the miles logged and all of that, but can you talk a little bit about the mission and purpose is the right way to describe it, but kind of the goals of the touring program?
Well, basically, it's to have fun. You know, we want the program to have a lot of fun. We want the people to have ease of access to it. Now, you do have to do some paperwork in order to have a tour sanctioned, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So there is some involvement of paperwork and what have you. That's only to authenticate the fact of miles and tours and such. And it's a very easy process. Beyond that, it's drive your cars, keep the record, and have fun.
You know, I really love that. I think that does totally capture exactly the experience. Really good. How about the different tours around the club that are offered that get enrolled in the program as a sanctioned tour? Can you talk about the different activity if a member, you know, in a specific area might want to join a group and go on a tour? What are the established tours around the country that members might take a part of?
Well, I'll address some on the East Coast over here first. One of them is the Happy Days Tour. The Happy Days Tour is for 1955 through basically 1985 cars, and it was created because we didn't have any tour in this area for that era car. And the only reason we normally break tours up into different eras is because of the drivability of the cars. Pretty hard to have a 27 four-cylinder running with a 55 V8. So that's one of the reasons that they break up tours. But you can have any kind of a tour you want. For instance, if you're looking at having a tour for your region and you're going to be just in the local area or on back roads, you can have anybody with any car in your tour. So it does vary quite a bit. Like I said, the Happy Days Tour is very popular here in the East Coast. We normally get about 50 or 60 cars on that every year, and it's enjoyable.
Dean, you also have a tour that you're a part of in your neck of the woods. Tell us a little bit about the Southwest Tour.
Well, we have kind of an eclectic bunch of people that really like to ride trains. And when I would go on the four-cylinder tour, I would want them to bring, when I started, I wanted them to bring a four-cylinder tour to Arizona, and they kept going and just never got down there. So I said, well, let's go ahead and do the Southwest Fall Tour. And so we travel each year to a different location in the Southwest that has trains to ride. And we have already ridden every train that we can get on in the Southwest because it's right at 15 years now. And it covers 1912 to 1954 Chevrolets. And we just have a group that they love to ride trains. So we try to do, if we can find a place. Some years we've had to drop off and just do a regular tour with no train to ride, and they all seem to enjoy it. And then we included the early six tour in for a while there, and to help boost, they were having a little trouble getting members to bring those cars out, so we included them in ours, and they had a blast. And now they've formed a Pacific Coast Tour farther up towards Oregon and Washington, but we still welcome anybody that wants to come on our tour to come and have a good time.
Well, I can tell you that the purchase of the 54 was very calculated so we could attend your tour. So we're really looking forward to hopefully getting it up and running and back on the road and joining you on, if not the next tour, the following tour at the Southwest Tour.
We'll be waiting for you.
And then on the six-cylinder tour, do you recall what years? I imagine it's the era of the six cylinders, but speak to the years on that tour.
They were 1929 to 36.
So it is the earlier. Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Dave talked a little bit about the four-cylinder tour. share a little bit about that tour and kind of the cars that participate on that, the years, the four-cylinder cars, and kind of some of the places they've gone to? They really are explorers.
Well, basically, they cover all the four-cylinder cars, 1928 and older. And I started back in the early 90s with it, after they've been going for a few years. It just intrigued me that they were having such a good time, and it's like a family reunion every year, which all the tours are. And they would be in Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and they would be down in New Mexico and up in Colorado and just all around. And they fill up every year. They fill up. And there's usually 50 plus cars. He tries to get everybody in, but sometimes it's just hard to get 50 cars into a parking lot or feed 100 plus people in one spot. But Tom and Jim do it, and it's always been a lot of fun. And it's just a great sight to be going down a long road, and there's 50 28 and older Chevrolets in front of you tooling down the road.
Yeah, they've covered some area. I think they went to Montana and Utah, and they've been in California a few times. I don't know if they came down as far south as your area, but they've hit Colorado. They really have gone to some really nice, unique places.
They've even gotten over into Minnesota and down. We were in Kentucky one year, too, after the national meet in 11.
Oh, my gosh.
And they're all over in Iowa. We've been in Iowa. So it's all over. Try to encompass, areas for everybody to come.
And then, Dave, I think you mentioned it. Some tours have different eras of car. I'll talk a little bit about the All-Cal. The All-Cal is a combination. It's not really a traditional tour. It's somewhere between a meet and a tour. But touring is certainly central to it. And for many years, that was the main activity, was touring. But then they do blend in a car show, and they have offered judging over the years. And that's permissible, right? You can have multiple events incorporated in what is also a sanctioned tour. Is that right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. In fact, on the East Coast here, almost all the area meets include some day of touring within the actual area meet, along with class judging.
Oh, that's good. Some tours in the club, and usually it's on the bigger ones, but they'll match people. And I know, Dean, you've done this on your tour. If you can't bring a car, so let's say that you just don't feel comfortable driving anymore as you're getting older, you could still pair up with a couple that may, or an individual that may, be willing. And sometimes the tour masters even help facilitate that, or they designate someone to do that. And in some cases, other VCCA members may tag along. That's another area where you can still enjoy the club. Is that right?
Yes. We will have people call and they'll say, my car isn't ready, but I'd sure like to go on your tour. Can I come? And I always say, yes, please come. Drive your modern car and we'll find a ride for you. And they are just overjoyed, or the guy comes in and something happens on the way in and they can't make it, but they get in their modern car and they drive on because they're already registered. We always find rides there. People are just more than welcome to have somebody ride, and a lot of new friendships are made that way also.
And I guess with that, let's talk a little bit about the passport program, because as you mentioned, there's some paperwork involved, and we talked a little bit about the early passports. But can you talk about how someone goes about taking advantage of the passport program and applying for their passport, and what purpose it serves?
Sure. Well, first of all, each of your vehicles requires an individual passport. So if you have multiple cars, you need a passport for each one. And then you record the sanctioned miles of all the tours that you participate in. And that simply means that somebody has to be the tour master, somebody has to plan that tour and then run. And that person, in doing that aspect of planning and conducting the tour, will submit a form to their area director, which then gets forwarded to the touring committee chairman, and it's entered into the database. So we have a record of when the tour was, where the tour was, how many miles it traveled officially, and who ran it. Then later on, during the tour, the tour master will make an entry into the touring passport indicating that information, the number, the date, and the miles. Down the road, when that person reaches a plateau, they can apply for a touring award. And we have multiple plateaus. We have a 500-mile plateau. Now you think about it, a four-cylinder, that's quite an accomplishment for a four-cylinder.
Sure is.
maybe much for a 55, but it is for a four-cylinder. But you get mileage awards at the 500 mile, which is an oval, very similar to the class judging oval, but with Lewis Chevrolet on it. And then we have plateaus at the 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and 10,000 mile levels. Currently, 14 members have reached 10,000 miles or more. And of that, by the way, 9 of them all belong to the Pine Barrens Touring Region.
Oh, that's great.
Which is here in New Jersey. And that's basically all we do. We don't do any shows whatsoever. We just travel.
Yeah, that's an interesting region. We'll come back to the passport, but share a little bit about the Pines Touring Region, because that is definitely unique. I'd like to see more across the VCCA.
Well, Pine Barrens Touring Region was created pretty much with Chuck Gibson and Steve Jones, who wanted to get more involved with touring. And that region was formed. We actually have people from multiple states within the region. Our normal method of operation is we meet at some common point. So people travel from wherever it is they live to a common point, and then we tend to travel together to where we're going. Quite often, to escape some of the cold weather in the Northeast here, we end up going to the Area 9 meet down wherever that's being conducted. We've gone as far as Key West.
Wow.
We've gone up into northern part of Canada. We've been out to Maine and as far west as the Grand Junction. So we travel quite a bit.
Oh, you did go to Grand Junction. Wow. That's a long ways. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, I've seen some of the stories in the G&D over the years, and it looks like a fun group for sure.
Yes, it is.
So with the passport program, you said you had, I believe you said 1,500 passports issued since the inception. Is that right?
Just over 1,500.
Do you have any sense of the total miles logged in the VCCA?
No.
Yeah, it's quite a bit, though.
I could probably come up with a pretty good guess if I compiled the database. We have tours from 2004 was the first tour in the database. And we have multiple tours. I never even figured how many tours we have in the database. So I could probably come up with a pretty good guesstimate of total miles traveled, but that would just be a guesstimate. And that would not be total miles for all our members, because each tour, let's say the tour has 200 miles, but if you have 5 participants in that tour or 10 participants, you have to take that 200 miles and multiply it by the number of participants to get the actual mileage.
Well, and then the other aspect to this is many members don't enter into the passport program. So the tour, is actually generating more miles to members' cars than what's recorded.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then with the passport program, once you log miles, like you said, you had milestones of 500 miles. Talk about the awards that the program offers.
Well, again, what you do is very easy, actually. You would make a copy of your passport and send that to the touring committee chairperson. The chairperson then takes all the entries you have recorded and confirms them against the database to make sure that they are valid entries for sanctioned tours. And then once that's completed, what we'll do is we'll look at what you've accrued and put it against the mileage levels available. And as I mentioned before, that's 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and 10,000 miles. And you get an oval that you put on your car. It's a stacking oval, so that at the 500 mark, you get the initial oval, and then all the others are stacking behind that, so that it shows on the top how many miles, what plateau you've reached.
So similar to the judging type ovals.
Yes. Another unique thing, by the way, is you can have a touring program oval on your car during class judging, and it doesn't create any problem whatsoever. It's allowed to be displayed along with the judging plaque.
And then you could even have a stacked set of touring ovals on your modern car. Is that correct?
Yes, another deviation from the norm in the clubs and in most clubs. The touring program is open to all current production Chevrolet and GMC vehicles. So quite often the people, for instance, let's mention the 4-cylinder that Dean was talking about, most of those people end up trailering their car to the tour. And a number of those people have their touring vehicle, their Silverado or whatever, in the program, so they get touring miles going to the four-cylinder tour on their Silverado, say, and then they get the four-cylinder miles on their four-cylinder when they're doing the tour.
And Dave, a little note there, my tow vehicle already has an award for it, so I follow it pretty close.
What is it that you're driving for a tow vehicle?
I drive a 2005 Silverado Chevy pickup.
That's pretty cool. And so you said you got the 500-mile award?
I think I'm on the 1,000-mile award already.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Well, yeah, you definitely have been to a few tours. I know that. Tell us a little bit. It appeared, several years ago, about the solo tour program and why that came into be and how that program's progressed along.
Really, the solo program was something that was requested by the membership. And the reason for that was many people, especially people out in the center portion of the country, have to travel quite a bit of distance alone in order to get to an event. And when we looked at that as a committee, we felt that it was warranted to be an allowed tour. So a solo tour, the only criteria for it is the tour has to be going to a sanctioned event. So let's say the Midwest is having a meet or an event, and somebody wants to go to that, they can apply for a solo tour to record their mileage from home to that sanctioned event. And that made it a lot more, I guess, fair, if you would say, that people could accrue that mileage.
So then when they travel to and from the event, that mileage can get entered into their passport and counted as part of the total accrued mileage. Is that correct?
That is correct. They would submit the form. It's the sanctioned tour request form, which is the 10.4T form, which is available on the website under touring. They would submit the form, and they would effectively be the tour master of that tour for themselves to go to each event.
So there's more than one avenue to accrue mileage in the program, which I think is really neat. And it really does speak to the whole purpose of getting the cars out and driving the cars and encouraging the cars to be driven. That's what that sounds like.
Yes, we had actually many people take advantage of the solo tour going to Tahoe for the anniversary meet in Tahoe. Can I make just one more point?
Sure.
When people look through their passport, it's all the memories of those tours. And as you look through the passport, that comes all flooding back. And that was something that was brought to my attention a ways into the program, and that people have sold a car because they can no longer drive it or what have you, but they have the passport, and going through it allows them to truly relive those memories by using it.
Yes, that's a really good point. Thanks for that, Dave. How about how one becomes a tour master? In the West Coast, we call them tour directors. How that can occur, and then how do you approach organizing a tour? How do you get started?
Well, first of all, anybody can be a tour master or tour director. Anybody. You don't have to belong to a region or have a region affiliation. Anyone who wants to tour with their car and wants to have a group of people with them traveling can put in and request sanctioning for a tour. Now, you say about how to go about doing this. In the committee, we quickly realized that we would have to provide some guidance to people on how to create and run a tour. Many people had no idea how you would do that. So we put together a user manual, if you will, or more correctly, what we call it, the Touring Guidelines Manual. And that's available to everybody on the website. There is no hard printed copy. It's only available on the website. And that way you always have whatever is current in the club, because anything that changes gets updated on the website. The Touring Guideline Manual actually takes you by the hand and leads you through the whole process of creating a tour, how you run it, how you would approach motels, events, sites of interest, so on.
It's pretty comprehensive for sure, and you've updated it a couple times over the years. I would say maybe every 2 to 3 years it's seen updates. So as changes come up, you're pretty good as a committee about getting it revised and posted. So thank you for that. And I can tell you it sure has served as a roadmap for me in the few small tours, the local tours that we've done, and it certainly was helpful on our turn at the helm for the All Cal.
Yeah, Jim, I'd have to second that because I think Dave and his committee did a great job putting that together, because I've actually had phone calls to organize a tour, and I've referred them to that and given them guidance too. So they did a nice job setting that up.
Again, that was a committee effort. In fact, some of you might remember Kate Perrin and his wife.
Yep.
They worked day and night for probably a couple of months because they were doing the draft of that. And we had people around the country all inputting for that development. And they did an outstanding job on developing that for us.
That's a good example of a husband and wife team. And I know you've got some members such as Tom Maleo and Jim Ferris and Dean that regularly serves as the tour master, multiple consecutive tours, annual basis in many cases. And then Chip Sweet, I think, is he doing the tour down in Texas now for a few years? Is that right?
Oh, Chip has been, and Bill Bradford.
And Bill Bradford, yeah.
They're very active with the Southern Spring Tour and the Southern Fall Tour. Pretty amazing what they're doing. In fact, let me just mention one. Years ago, they had a tour in Texas that people would do on their own and go to every courthouse in every county in Texas.
Oh, my gosh.
And years to accomplish the end of that. Well, they're doing that again now, but a similar situation where they're going to be traveling all over the state, and it'll take them years to meet the goal.
I think they're visiting a list of towns in Texas that are like different names.
That's right. It's the World Tour of Texas that they're doing. So, for instance, they're going to Paris, Texas, and so on.
Yeah, there's like 220 counties in Texas, something like that.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, that tour, the Hill Country in particular, when they go to the Hill Country, that has been kind of a bucket list item for me to go. But with the drive to and from Southern California added, it's about 12 hours, 14 hours from my place to the Hill Country. Coupled onto the time there, I just haven't been able to accomplish it. But I sure hope that, at some point in the future, we can take the Impala and spend a week with them and go to see the Hill Country, because it's a first-class tour.
They do first-class tours.
How about how a member go about getting a local region tour sanctioned, what the steps they need to take, and walk us through a little bit of that process?
Okay. Again, on the website, you go to VCCA.org and then on to touring. And when you do, you'll find the touring guidelines manual that we mentioned earlier. But then right below that, you'll find there's a copy of a form, the sanctioned tour request form, the 10.4T form. And you would either fill that out online or print a copy and mail it to your area director and complete that form. And that is a very simple form to complete. And that provides all the information for the recording of the tour. Your area director would approve that and then send that to the touring committee chairman. There's also a page of directions on how to fill out the form. So it's not only a form, but there's instructions as to how you would go about it. And if there's any questions or problems, you can always call anyone in the touring committee.
Yeah, it's another example of the touring committee refining it as they go. And I think that's at least in its third revision, maybe more. And the directions are very good. And it's a one-page form. It is easy to complete. So thank you for that. And I guess because any member in the club can organize a tour, anyone can download that form and start a tour, as you said. So that's very helpful. How about after the tour? I know the committee a while back went on a campaign to get the word out about documenting tours and sharing the enjoyment of touring with the other membership. And so it was encouraged for tour masters to find someone to write an article. Can you talk a little bit about the G&D and how someone would go about submitting their tour story to the G&D?
Sure. Well, the ideal way to document the tour is to have somebody committed to doing that prior to running the tour. By doing it in that fashion, what you have is somebody who knows what they're going to be doing. And as a result, they normally end up taking notes along the way of the tour and taking specific photographs and whatnot, so that you end up with a really meaningful product when you're done. They then sit down and either themselves, with the help of others, write up an article covering the highlights of the tour, and what they did, where they went, and so on, including the photographs, and then send that to Vince, the editor, and then he can work it over with you and put it into the junior. It makes for fantastic reading and good advertisement for the club.
And that's editor at vcca.org.
Correct.
And Dean, you've written up a few tour articles. Tell us about submitting articles and kind of how you approach it. You have really good knowledge and firsthand experience at that.
Well, like Dave mentioned, on our tours, we have a person, Carla Evans, that loves to do the articles, and she's quite a photographer, along with a few other people that all team up during the tour and get the pictures together. And then she will usually write up the article. She takes notes during the whole tour, and she'll put it all together and then send it to me and have me do a spell check for her. And then we'll put it together with the pictures, and then I usually run it past you when you were the Area 1 director, just to see if there was any comments you might have on it, and then we would send it on to Vince, and it's usually been pretty good. People themselves love to read about themselves on the tour. That's a given. And other people like to see what's actually going on our tours also.
Well, and as the committee discussed back a while ago when we talked about this, it also encourages members that might be reluctant because they see that looks like fun. And, again, it's another avenue where you can bring your spouse and they can join you. I don't know how many spouses actually go on the 4-cylinder tours. That might, I'm not sure of that. But in many, like the Happy Days, it's almost all couples, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, mostly.
Yep. So it's a great way. And the pictures and the stories kind of represent that. And I think that's a great message from the touring committee to see that in the monthly magazine.
Pretty much any of the tours involve the husband and wife team on the tour. It's amazing to me. For instance, here in the East, Nick and Barbara Matlack travel all over the country together going on tours, and I know others do also. But one of the things that comes up quite often, people say, how can you travel with that old car so far? Well, first of all, we establish parts for our vehicle, critical parts that we may need, and we carry them with us so that you don't have a problem. And if you look at the people you're traveling with, everybody probably has some level of spare parts and what have you. But more importantly, you have a vast amount of knowledge with you, with all your other tourists. So really, it's pretty safe in traveling. Most of our cars are pretty easy to fix. The only thing that would be a problem if you had a catastrophic failure, and then the game plan is you rent the truck with a trailer and bring it home. But otherwise, get out on the road and drive them. I mean, we've changed a fuel pump on the side of the road or whatever, and it doesn't take long. It's not a big problem. So you feel pretty comfortable traveling when you're traveling with a group of Chevy folks.
We have found over the years the network of the Vintage Chevrolet club members across the United States that we always will look ahead, put down address, phone numbers, emails of Chevy Club members, maybe along the route that we're going to go, just in case, because we've found 100% of the time, if we've had a problem out on the road that we really need a little bit of help or expertise with, those members will come right to help you from wherever they are if you contact them. And it's nice to have that network out there because the knowledge they may have or just the help that they may come up with if you needed the help.
We were somewhere, I don't even remember where it was, someplace in upstate New York, right near the Canadian border. And a generator went on one of the fellas' cars. And doing like you said, Dean, we called up a local member and he ran over with a spare generator, which got us back on the road and traveling. And when the fellow was home, he ended up shipping the generator back to the fellow and had his rebuilt.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's incredible.
We were on the Route 66 tour down in Missouri, and my generator caused a problem on the way across, and I just happened to have the numbers with me, and a member in one spot in Oklahoma, known him for many years. We pulled up, I called him, he says, bring it over to the shop, and luckily the lunch stop was right across the street from his shop that day. Pulled up in front of his shop, he came out, pulled the old generator off, took it in, rebuilt it in his shop, brought it out, put it back on, and would not let me pay him. He would not let me. He says, no, you're a member. He says, I appreciate every one of you. And he says, pass it on down the line. So it was great. It was really great.
Yes.
That's really cool. Really cool. And then I know in some tours, the larger tours, they designate a trouble truck, and there's always help with fuel and that kind of stuff. So I agree, they're safe. We had to tow the Impala back from Northern California when its engine finally said no more. But we've also done a couple of roadside repairs on tours. In each case, there's been help at the ready, and so that's definitely the spirit of the VCCA for sure.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
One of the last things I wanted to touch on is about encouraging people to organize tours. And Dean, you really spoke to it when you talked about tasking someone with writing the article and taking care of the pictures. It's okay to designate helpers, right? Talk about how to get people involved so the tour master or tour director doesn't shoulder all of the work.
Well, I think the people come on the tours to have a good time. It's like a family reunion. A lot of times it's a lot of the same people plus some new people, and then we lose some people over time. And for the most part, the people are there to have a good time and they're to help out if you need help. Just like with Carla doing our pictures. Actually, the first tour 15 years ago, she says, I would like to be the person to do the pictures in the article. Is that okay? And what do I say? You bet. Twist my arm. She's taken it over and run with it ever since, but then she's had some help recently. A fellow and his son help her take the pictures and get a quite array of pictures to turn in, so we get that. And then when we go in and we're parking, there's people always jumping up to help park, get all the cars in and park, direct traffic, direct people into places. To give you an example, when we go on the tour and we take the group picture, a lot of times we're always looking for a raised area above where we can get up a little higher on a hill or up on a ladder or something like that. In the last few years, since this one couple joined the tours and their son, he's a fireman. His son's a fireman. Well, he has quite a connection with the fire departments around the west area. You know, he's out of Colorado. And on several of the tours that we've been on, he has a connection. We end up with a ladder truck for our picture, for the group picture.
Oh, my gosh.
And he has the connections. He makes a call. Boom, the ladder truck shows up. It's really neat to have that type of connection to help, because we've fallen off ladders and fell down hills trying to get the picture for everybody for their car. And then he came up with the drone this time when we couldn't get the ladder truck. And so there's just creative people out there in your group that are always willing to help.
That's a great idea. So we need to recruit a few more firefighters.
There you go.
That'll be good for the All-Cal. I'm going to talk to Jim Matus about that. See if he can get one of his buddies.
The other part of that you just mentioned, and that's where, you know, technology is coming into play. A lot of people have drones nowadays, you know, and that would be kind of interesting to be able to have a drone involved with a tour. It would give us a whole aspect of touring.
Yeah, very much.
That's for sure.
So like I say, they're all eager to help pretty much, and it's really nice. Makes my job a lot easier.
So as we get ready to come to a close here, can you share with us where members can learn more about the touring program and about how to organize a tour, all those resources, the different various avenues where they can obtain more information?
Well, basically what you want to do is go on the club website and click on touring. You go on touring and you will find everything that we have available, including lists of parts to carry, things to do, items to check on your car before you leave. It's a rather comprehensive coverage of touring. And if you have any questions beyond that, just feel free to contact anybody in the touring program. They'll be happy to help you. We've had tremendous success there with helping people out with information or guidance, whatever it is they need.
Dean, did you have anything to add to that?
Dave covered it pretty good. There's also information in the G&D. Dave writes an article once in a while. There's contact information in there. And if you use the VCCA chat site, you can also ask questions in there, get information in there also.
Well, and then on the chat site, there's a section for tours. They post upcoming tours, and then they have pictures and stories of past tours. So in addition to the G&D, there's a whole repository of tours that have been completed at the chat site as well. So that's another resource. And then also, in addition to the touring committee members, which are all eager to help, the area directors are very familiar with the touring program in each of the different areas and are involved. And they're also good resources. Dave? Did you find most of them helpful in helping members with the questions?
Oh, very much so. They are kind of the first line of defense questions quite often will go to them before they come even to us. And down to each individual person, they do an excellent job of either providing the answer or directing the member to where they can get the answer.
And then at the region level, I don't know if this is prevalent on the East Coast, but here on the West Coast, at least in the Southern California area, many regions will designate a primary tour person who may not necessarily be the tour master or tour director for every tour, but he's the designated expert and go-to if a member wants to organize a tour and helps them get the forms and do the thing. And I think it works well. Do you see that on the East Coast? Because I think it's a pretty good model.
Yeah, pretty much the same story here. It's nothing official. It's no real position or anything, but there tends to be somebody in, whether it be a geographical or an actual region of the club or chapter, there's somebody who has the interest, the knowledge, and the desire to be involved, and they can provide guidance to whoever needs it. Very common.
How about any final comments? Dave, I'll start with you. Did you have any parting words that you wanted to share with the membership?
Well, looking at touring, if you have any concerns or fears about touring, just put them aside and talk to some of the folks who have done it. I can just share an example of one that we had one member who had never driven his car, I don't think more than 100 miles from his house. And he decided to go on a tour with us. His wife at that time had no interest in the car or going to shows or doing anything. So he decides to come on a tour with us. We were going down to Florida. And his wife says, well, you can't drive that alone. He says, I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to be with all these other people. She says, yeah, but you're going to be alone in a car. So under duress, she decided she was going to do the tour with him. And she was not happy. By the time we were heading home, she said, when's the next tour? And has never missed one since.
That's great.
So I think that's pretty good advertisement for it.
That's great.
That is a great story. It's a good way to sum it up. Thanks so much. Dean, how about you? Do you have any final comments for us?
I echo Dave's comments. Plus, I just want to invite anybody to please get out and join everybody. Join a tour. Get in and have fun. You won't regret it. And the memories will last a lifetime of the people you come in contact and the places you go, and getting to enjoy your vintage Chevrolet.
Thanks to you both for all your dedication to the VCCA, not just the touring program, but each of you give back in so many other areas of the club, and you truly are special. Thanks so much for all your hard work and dedication. It's been a lot of fun talking with the both of you this past hour. We appreciate it, and we'll see you both soon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank Dave Cavagnaro and Dean Echols once again for all of their efforts to support the VCCA Touring Program and all the many fun aspects that touring offers the members of the VCCA. Dave and Dean are both longtime VCCA members that have tirelessly given their time and expertise to the club over the years for the betterment of the VCCA. They both truly are great examples of the many stars of the VCCA. Until next time, be well, drive safe, and we'll catch you on the back roads.
America is asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all. On a highway or a road along a levee. Performance is sweeter. Nothing can beat her. Life is completer in a Chevy. So make a day today to see the USA and see it in your Chevrolet.